Hello, everybody. My name is Don Daniel, founder of P.I.L.L Method International. And today, oh, this is going to be phenomenal. Today, we're going to be talking about how to disrupt debt disrupted now. What does that mean? For far too long, we have been in a system that keeps us in debt forever. Today, if you want to know how to eliminate all of your debt, not just the mortgage, not just your 30-year mortgage, but you want to learn how to eliminate all of your debt in 7 to 9 years. All of it. That is your mortgage, your student loans, your credit cards, everything. Save money at the same time. I mean, have more money saved than you ever have before. And cancel 75% of the interest that the bank wants you to pay. And you can do that all simultaneously. And you can start adding money to your retirement fund all at the same time. If that were possible, would you want to know how to do it? We're going to give you some insights into that tonight. So I just want you to listen. I just need you to hold on just for a few seconds while we get everything ready for you tonight. And oh my gosh, I'm excited about this whole thing, how to disrupt the bank's system, how to disrupt their timing and make it impossible for them to charge you all of that interest. And when you can cut all that interest, ladies and gentlemen, the debt just melts away. We're going to be doing this in a way that you've never thought about it before. So I can't wait to get started. So are you ready? Are you ready? If you're ready, go ahead and tell somebody, call somebody, share this with somebody, call your cousins, call your friends, call your coworkers, and have them to subscribe to the P.I.L.L Method channel. Just do that right now while we get ready to give you this show. Are you ready? Hold on. We'll be right back. All right, folks, this is Debt Disrupted Now. This is the name of this show, how we can disrupt debt right now. And if you want to know why we're in the situation we're in, it is because you were never supposed to know how debt actually works. No, not since 1936, when the first self-amortizing mortgage was instituted in the United States. No information has been told to us about how debt actually works. So we're going to be breaking some things down for you tonight. And I want to show you some things because the interest rates are dropping slightly. They're coming down just a little bit. And when they come down far enough, what are people likely to do? I need you to put that in the chat. I need you to go ahead and put it in the chat. All right? What are people likely to do once the interest rates come down? Do you know? Yeah, they're likely to refinance. I talked to somebody who refinanced just a little bit ago. I want to show you some numbers about refinancing. And everything that you've ever learned about how debt works goes out the window when I start showing you these examples. Number one, let's take a look at what happens when you refinance. Okay. So I'm going to put something on the screen right now. Let me put this on the screen. Let me share this with you. Okay. So we have here, this is a $400,000 mortgage at 7%. Now, I like 7% loans, and maybe I'll get a chance to tell you why I like 7% loans just a little bit later. Okay. But I like 7% loans for this very reason, that you can actually save more money in interest at the higher interest rates than you can at the lower interest rates if you learn interest cancellation techniques, because that's what we teach. I want to give you a little bit of mortgage mechanics right now and show you how people can pay 100 to 500% interest on a loan with perfect credit. They have perfect credit, but they can pay 100 to 500% interest on a loan, and they don't even realize that they're doing it. This is what the banks count on. They count on us not understanding how all of this works so that they can slide things underneath the surface while we're thinking we're getting a deal. I need you to watch this right now. Here's a $400,000 mortgage, and let's just say they've been in this thing for, let's see, for 3 years. They've been in it for 3 years. Okay. I need you to take a look at cumulative principal and cumulative interest. Cumulative principal and cumulative interest. Now, you know what? Most people refinance after 5 years, 5 to 7 years. Okay. Let's do 5 years. So here's how much principal they paid down in the first year. Look how much interest they paid in the first year. $27,800 in interest, while only $4,000 went to principal. Paid down the loan by only $4,000, but it cost $27,000 to do that. Let's see what it looks like in 5 years. That's 60 payments. Congratulations, you paid your loan down by $23,473.59, but it cost you $136,000 in interest at this point. And now you want to refinance because let's just say you can get a 4% mortgage now. I mean, it won't go all the way to 4. I can tell you that it won't. Okay. But I'm just using this as an example, because if somebody was in a 7% loan and they thought they could get a 4% mortgage, they would jump on it with both feet. Now, it's most likely to go to maybe 6.5, maybe as low as 5.5, but it won't go to 4. Okay. So if I could show you where 4% really is not in your favor, then neither will 5.5. Just stay at the 7 and you will do just fine. All right. So let's talk about that right now. All right. So let's just say we have paid this thing down to where from 400,000 down to 376,526.41. So we're going to copy that. Okay. I'm using Brett Whistle, by the way, as my amortization calculator, and you can find it yourself and do some of this along the way with me. I use this as a teaching tool. This is not my program. What we're going over now is not the P.I.L.L method, ladies and gentlemen. What we're going over right now is mortgage mechanics. You need to understand the mechanics of a mortgage to understand what we're talking about now. Okay. So I paid down to here. So we're going to duplicate this tab. Okay. And we're going to put in our new mortgage amount right here. Okay. We paid it down to there. All right. So we're going to paste it in there, but this program doesn't like commas. So you have to take that comma out. So our old payment was $26.61.21. So we're going to take that out and put in a 4% mortgage. Oh my gosh, people will be falling all over themselves to get that 4% mortgage. But let me tell you, over 90% of the people who get a refinance to a lower interest rate get a brand new 30-year mortgage, not a 25-year mortgage, a brand new 30-year mortgage. Now, somebody's going to ask, well, Don, what if we could get a 25? We're already 5 years in. What if we could get a 25-year mortgage and go from there? Nope, don't do it. It still will not do you any good. All right. So if you want to know more about this, go to ice10k.com. It's going across the screen there, ice10k.com, and fill out a savings and earnings report. And I can spend more time with you. If you're getting ready to refinance, I can spend more time with you showing you, I don't care what the interest rate is. I don't care what the term is. Stay with your current loan. You're going to be better off. So if they say, well, Don, if I pay down 5 years, if I refinance to a 25-year, it's got to be better. Well, it's not better than using the P.I.L.L method. It's not better than learning interest cancellation techniques. It's not. Watch this. So at 4%, here's our new payment, $17.97. Now, let me tell you something. It's not the interest rate that is the driving force in lowering the payment. It's taking what you owe and dividing it by a brand new 360 payments. That's what lowers your payment. Oh, but this really is not the mortgage at this point because there are closing costs. Now, somebody told me that they got a great interest rate and all it cost them was $10,000 in closing costs, but not out of pocket. It was rolled into the loan. Oh my gosh. So listen, if we could get that $10,000 rolled into the loan at 4%, that's got to be great. So let's raise this from 376,000 to 386,000 because we have to add the 10,000 in for the closing costs. Now our payment is no longer $17.97. So let's take that out and find out what our new payment is. Our new payment is $18.45. Not that much difference. Okay. Not that much difference. I could buy that. That's good. But now let me show you what happens because we were down to 376,000. Now we're at 386,000. So what is it going to take to get back to 376,000 where we started? So here is what the people who are selling you a refinance will tell you. And all the experts will tell you the same thing. Okay. How much are your savings? How much are your payment savings divided into the $10,000? That will tell you how long you need to stay in the loan to recoup your closing costs. That's what everybody teaches. And it is completely wrong. Completely wrong. So let's do the math. Let me put my calculator on the screen so you guys can see. Now, anytime I do something, I want people to see the math. I want you to see the numbers. So we have a new payment of 18. No, let's go back to the old payment. Okay. The old payment was 2661.21. All right. And there we go. All right. 2661.21. That's the old payment. Now, what's the new payment? Here's the new payment. Okay. New payment is 1845.34. So we're going to subtract 1845 and 34 cents. There it is. $815.87. So if we take the 815, okay, $815.87. If we take that and divide it into the 10,000, that will tell us how long we have to stay in the loan to recoup our funds. So let's do that. Let's put in 10,000 and divide it by 800. There it is. Divided by 815 and 87 cents. Okay. This is what the experts will tell you. You have to be in there, you know, if you're in there like 12 months, about a year. Okay. If you're in there about a year, you can recoup your closing costs. Completely untrue. That is the wrong math. May I show you the right math? Now, I've got some people right here that are watching me on YouTube, maybe on Facebook. If you're watching me on YouTube or Facebook, tell me where you're watching from, okay? Where are you watching me from? All right. And then I need you also to put a number 7 in the chat. Put a number 7 in the chat, ladies and gentlemen, so I can see it if you want to know how long it really takes to pay back, to get your money back out of this thing, and what it really costs for a refinance here. And it's not $10,000, let me tell you. Okay. It's not. Okay. So tell me where you're watching from. Go ahead, put it in there. Tell me where you're watching from. YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're watching us from, and put a number 7 in the chat so I can see it. We can go ahead and get this done. In the meantime, watch this. I'm going to scroll down. Let me get rid of this advertising because we don't need that. Okay. I'm going to scroll down here. Look at this. So it will take, I thought I got rid of this. Get out of here. All right. So I need to take a look at cumulative principal, because that's where the principal is. All right. I listen, I see you, Taisha from Central Kansas. And she says, number 7, I want to see it. Okay. All right. So here we go. Watch this, ladies and gentlemen. Watch this. In the first year, we only pay back $6,000. Okay. Wait a minute. That can't be right. Is this the 4% loan? Yes. This is at 4%. And in the first year, we only pay back $6,800 of this loan. We haven't even paid back all of the closing costs yet, because the closing costs were $10,000. How much interest did we pay on the first $6,800? $15,000 in interest. What? So how long does it take to pay back $10,000 to get back to our original $376,000? It takes 18 months. Look at here. 18 months. 18 months. And look at the amount of interest. $22,900. So folks, how much did this refinance actually cost? Did it just cost $32,000, almost $33,000? In other words, you borrowed, if this was your loan, to get this 4% interest rate, to get this great rate, it only cost $10,000, but not out of your pocket. We rolled that $10,000 into the loan. They never want you to pay it out of pocket. Never. They want you to roll it into the loan, because you're thinking, yeah, it's 10,000, but it's at 4%. It ain't 4%, ladies and gentlemen. It never was. Okay. So $10,000 costs you 22 grand to pay it back. All right. That's 10,300 and 22,900. That is over $33,000. If you got a letter from your credit union today in the mail that says, have we got a deal for you? We're going to lend you $10,000 for 18 months. And all you have to do is pay us $22,900 in interest. Would you accept that deal? Huh? Would you accept that deal? Absolutely not. But people who refinance do this all the time, and they don't even realize it. So let me ask you this. If you borrowed $10 from me and you were going to pay me back tomorrow. And I said, okay, pay me back. But when you pay me back $10, give me an additional $10 on top of it. Okay. I want $10 interest. Folks, what is that interest rate? If you pay me back $10 and you give me $10 interest on top of that, isn't that 100%? Watch this. If you borrow $10,000 from the bank and you pay it back and you pay $10,000 interest on top of that $10,000, isn't that 100% interest? But what if it's $20,000? Isn't that 200% interest? For a person who has perfect credit, and this is a 4% loan, not only did you just pay $33,000 for this thing, they charged you 200% interest on top of it, and we didn't even realize they were doing it. Folks, we need to disrupt their system right now. We have to. To kill debt, you want to make sure you can kill the maximum amount of interest that's mathematically possible. And you want to pay the right amount at the right time. Can I show? Listen, this is the very first time I've done this experiment online. I haven't even practiced this one. Okay. Now, I will tell you, I have autism spectrum disorder. When I see this thing, I see pictures and patterns. And sometimes I can kind of figure things out even before we do the math. So let's learn how interest cancellation works. But I want to show you, if you pay a different amount at a different time, you can increase your interest savings per dollar. Watch this. So let's start at the beginning of the first loan here. This is at 7%. Okay. So first of all, I need you to see that a $400,000 loan at 7%, the payment is $2,661. But here's how much interest they want you to pay: $558,000 on a 7% loan. What? $558,000. Look at that. So let's take a look at how the loan breaks down. Out of that first payment of $2,661, only $327.88 goes to principal, while $2,333.33 goes to interest. Just like that. Just like that. So if we make a payment here and then they subtract this from what we owe, this is how much we owe now: $399,672.12. So they use this number to figure out how much interest we owe on the very next line. Okay. So we take a look at this, and now we can drop down to line 2, where we're only paying $2,331.42 instead of $2,333. So not quite $2 difference, but that money goes over here to the principal side. So every month is a little more principal, a little less interest. Does that make sense, everybody? A little more principal, a little less interest. So if they can charge us this way, they charge us according to how much we owe at the time. But if I make my payment here, let's call this January's payment. If I make my January payment, this would be February's principal payment, $329.79. Do you know I don't have to wait till February to give them that money? What if I gave them that money in January? You realize they have to subtract that right away, right? Okay, so we're going to subtract the $329.79 right now. Okay, we're going to give that to them early, so we're paid down to line 2 in January. Line 2, we're paid down in January. So our next mortgage payment for February will actually be on line 3. So what just happened? I gave them this money. Okay, $329.79. I don't have to pay the $2,333.42 in interest. I saved that. I just killed $2,300 in interest by giving them this money early. In other words, every time you make a payment on time, every time you do it, this is what happens. This is your equity. You just increase your equity, but look how much it costs you to get it. Every single month, $2,300, $2,300, $2,300. And you just get this little bit of equity every single time. Folks, how fair is that? Don't you think somebody should have been explaining this to us back in middle school, that this is how a mortgage works? And all I had to do, mortgage mechanics, all I had to do was take a little bit of money out of the bank, give it to them early, and I could skip right over this interest payment. I get this equity for free. Well, would you like to get your equity for free? So it's not enough just to save interest, ladies and gentlemen. I want to save the maximum amount of interest per dollar. Per dollar. Okay. So let me show you what happens if let me put my calculator back on the screen. Okay. If I can save $2,333.42, okay, let's just do that. Let's put that in our calculator. How much am I saving per dollar if I give them this money and save this? So we can do $2,331.42 divided by 329.79. Look at that. Okay. That's $7. And so because this is a 9, we have to round this 6 up to a 7. $7.07. For every dollar out of the 329.79, for every dollar we put on there, we saved $7.07. If you gave me $1 and I gave you back $7.07, how many times would you all do that? You know, the bank has to do the exact same thing. If you only put an extra dollar on it on this mortgage, it would save you $7. Look at that. $7.06. So what if we did this? I'm going to give them this one and this one. Okay. So we're going to make our mortgage payment. I'm going to give them $329.79 and $331.71. All right. And I'm going to save these two interest rates. So the interest payments. So let's do the math on that. Let me get my calculator back. Okay. So the amount of interest we're going to kill if we give them this one and this one, we drop down to line 4 on our amortization schedule for February. So these two interest payments we save. So let's add it up. Okay. Let's add that up. So we got, let me see, clear this out. $2,331.42 plus 2329.50 plus 2329.50. Okay, equals $4,660. I got to make a note here, and 92 cents. Okay, so write that down, 4,660.92. And now we're going to add these two together. All right, we're going to add those two together. Let's pull our calculator back up on the screen. So we're going to do 329.79 plus, okay, 333.65. Okay, that equals 663.44. 663.44. So we'll put our $4,000 back in here. 4,660.92. Okay, and divided by 663.44. Okay, there you go. $7.02. Okay, So before we were saving like $7.07. Now we're saving $7.03 because we had a 5, we got to round that up. Okay? It matters how much you pay and when you pay so that you can maximize the amount of interest that you're saving per dollar. You want to maximize the amount of interest you're saving per dollar. So, folks, this is why if you have a lot of bit now somebody called me today and says, "Listen, we got a big tax refund coming. Should we put all of that tax refund on our mortgage because we could save a ton of money?" Okay? Let's just say that they had well, they could prepay $23,000. If they could do that, they would knock off 5 years off this loan and look how much interest they would save. Okay? But here's the thing. I need you guys to do this with me. Let's just say I gave you have plenty of money in the bank. You got plenty of money. And this is what the banking system is not teaching us. You got plenty of money, and I'm going to give you two choices to prepay. $4,063.23. That's 12 months you could eliminate and the interest that goes along with it. Or the 8420 on line 24 of this mortgage and save 55 grand. Okay. So if you had a choice, which one would you all choose? I think I can hear you. Which one would you choose? Most people would choose line 24 if they had plenty of room, if they had plenty of money. If they had plenty of money, that's what they would do. Okay? They would take line 24. So let's do the math on that. Okay? I could save 27,871 and 29 cents divided by $4,063.23. That equals $6.85, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, that's $6.86 because we have to round it up. 686. So if I do line 24, which is 55,000 in savings, 55,448 and 86 cents, and divided by 8420 and 18 cents. $6.58. Wow. $6.86 for a dollar, down to $6.58 per dollar. Huh. So, folks, don't you want to save the maximum amount of interest you possibly can per dollar each and every time you put money on principal? But how can you do that if you don't have a way to measure? You see, the average family has 13 different debts. They pay 35 to 39% of their take home pay on interest alone. 35 to 39% of their income pays just the interest. That's what's killing us. So if we could lower the amount of interest to the absolute minimum per dollar, we could use our current budget, what we're making right now, to save interest. So here's how we do that. Okay. So if we could just manage to track our income and our expenses, we would know how much money would be left over each month. What if there was a program that said, let's put that extra money in the savings account and keep it in there for the right amount of time so that you can take the right amount of money out of that savings account and attack the debt and save the maximum amount of interest per dollar for you? out of your savings account. Oh my goodness. And well, Don, if I keep taking all that money out of my savings account, how would I ever save? Well, here's the thing. When you're optimizing, you want to pay the least amount of money available to maximize interest savings per dollar, not the most, because you put too much on, the amount of interest that you can save per dollar goes down. We just showed that. So you want to put the right amount at the right time and not pay too much. So I had a guy who this I'm telling this to my nighttime show. I've told it in the daytime show, but this is the nighttime show. So I think I'm safe in telling this story again. I had a guy who lives right here in Huntsville, and using our program, he's killing his mortgage. I mean, he's knocking it out the park. He has $263,000 left to pay. And the program says you can pay that off with the amount of money he's making now. He can pay that off in 3.5 years. And he's only going to pay $16,000 in interest. I told him, you're paying off the house too fast and you're not paying enough interest. He says, what do you mean? I thought that was the idea. He says, tell the program, and I'm going to pull the program up here so you guys can see it. Okay. Tell the program that you are making $2,000 a month less. Okay. So tell the program you're making $2,000 a month less. And so when he did that, the program then says, oh, you're now going to be out of debt in 6.5 years, not 3.5. You're going to pay $20,000 in interest, not 16. This, Don, is costing me more interest and it's taking me longer to get out of debt. Why would I do that? So it's because what you're trying to do is get out of debt in 3.5 years. What would you have to do that? He says, I would have to put that $2,000 a month back into my budget. Yeah, for 3.5 years. He says, yeah, that's right, 3.5 years, and I'll be out of debt. So let's count it up. 3 years, that's 36 months. And another half year, that's 6 months on top of that. That's 42 months. So it's 42 months. You can do the math. 42 months times $2,000 a month. Isn't that $84,000? He said, yeah. So you're telling me you had put $84,000 into debt reduction just so that you could save $4,000 in interest? Because, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why we pay off debt is not to pay off the debt fast. The reason why we pay off debt is to save the maximum amount of interest that makes sense. At a certain point, stop throwing money at the debt and take that money and invest it in something else. That's what the people who own this system, that's what they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know that you can take your interest savings and become millionaires by investing it elsewhere. Because once you get that mortgage, most of you realize that when you sign those papers, within 2 weeks, that mortgage was sold to somebody else. And they depend on you making every single one of your payments on time. Why? When an investor buys this loan, the investor says, I love the fact that you have to give me $26.61 each month, because when you're actually paying this loan, you're thinking part of my money goes to principal and part of my money goes to interest. Yes, but that's not exactly the way it works. Here's how it exactly works. When you pay your mortgage payment, all 2,000, let me put this back on the screen. All $2,661.21 goes to the investor. All of it. Okay. But what gets to happen? They get to discount that money that you gave them, they get to discount it so that only $327.88 counts to pay down the mortgage. Next month, you give them the investor the same 2661, and they get to discount your payment again by $2,331.42, so only $329.79 of your money pays down the loan. Folks, are you tired of this? Are you tired of this? Are you tired of people not telling you the truth about how loans work? Let me tell you what's going on behind the scenes here with this 7% loan. So they take the 7%, okay? And let's clear this out. 0.07 divided by 12. That's the number. That's the number they use. 0.0058333333. That's the number they use each and every month, and they multiply it by the unpaid balance to get your interest payment. And then the rest goes to principal. So if we take this number and multiply it by 400,000, our original amount, times 400,000 equals $2,333.33. Look at that. That's exactly what happens. Then the next month, they do it again. They take 7%, 0.07, divided by 12, and then they multiply it by this number because the 327.88 paid down the loan. So now they have to multiply it by this number, the 399,672.12. So we're going to multiply it by this. So multiply by 399,672.12 equals 2331.42. That's exactly what you have here. So they're taking 1/12 of your interest rate every single month and multiplying it by the unpaid balance 360 times. So folks, what you thought was one mortgage, this turns it into 360 separate mortgages that you pay every single month. That's why it's so doggone expensive. And nobody told us that it's not one mortgage, it's 360 mortgages. Nobody told us that, but that's exactly what's happening here. Are you tired of that? Listen, folks, I need you to watch something, okay? Watch this and do what these people are doing, saving money. I'm gonna let you listen to Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher, and how he paid off his mortgage. Listen up.
Listen to me, y'all. But one of his mentees took us through one of their programs, and I paid off my mortgage. But guess what happened? My marriage went to a whole nother level. And you know why? Because my wife is a security freak. And even when I blew up, my wife would be like, oh, you blew up, but how long is you gonna keep making this kind of money? I was like, I don't know, forever. She's like, you sure? Because I'm gonna keep my license as a nurse just in case you don't. So when I paid the house off, my boy was like, you ain't gotta do that, you can do this. But when I paid the house off using that program, it took the stress level all the way down from my wife because we no longer had a mortgage. Does that make sense? That thing that was coming every month, that was getting on her nerves, we didn't have that no more. And so she was at rest.
You see, folks, if you go to ice10k.com right now, ice10k.com, it's scrolling across the bottom of the screen, you can get a savings and earnings report, and we won't charge you for it. You can know the month, day, and year you can be debt-free on your mortgage, your student loan, your credit cards, your car loans, everything. And most people, the average is 7 to 9 years. Now, some people take a little bit longer. Now, I've seen it go as high as 13 years, but it's still better than 30. And I'm talking about all of your debt. I've seen it as low as 5. So, but somewhere between 7 and 9, that's going to be great. So, how would you like to be able to pay off all of your debt in an average of 7 to 9 years? Save money at the same time and cancel interest like crazy so the banks can't keep hitting you every single month with all of that interest. And take your interest savings and invest it in your own family. How would you like to be able to do that? It costs you nothing to find out. Go ahead and let's disrupt the banking system now. Let's disrupt it. Okay. Let's not let them keep doing that. So look here. Debt disrupted now. Financial counterintelligence. Real math, real freedom. You can learn that right now. You can start anytime you want. There's no reason to keep doing that. So let me pull up my our program here, our opportunity cost calculator that does all of the math. Okay, I want to show it to you. So while that's coming up, does anybody have any questions? Put it in the comment section. If you got any questions at all, put it in the comment section. If you want to join us right here in the studio, I'm going to put a link in here. You can take this link that I'm putting on the, let's see, take this, put it in the comment section. There it is. You can take that link, ladies and gentlemen, and put it in your Chrome browser, and you can come right into the studio, and you can ask your questions live right here, right now. You don't have to be on camera with me. I wish you would, though. You can just be on audio if you want. But anyway, get that information. Come on in and ask some questions. If you don't want to be in here live, put some questions in the comment section, and I'll put your questions on the screen. We'll read the question and we'll give you an answer. Okay? So, how about people who want to put a large down payment on a loan? Don't ever do it. Okay? Don't ever do it. Not even on a car loan. I have one of my young clients, okay, just totaled her car. With the insurance is going to give her a check, all right? But she's not going to put that check as a down payment. Never put a large down payment on a car loan or on a mortgage. Don't do it. Here's why. And this is what they don't tell you. So I had a guy who was going to get he was getting a $400,000 mortgage, wasn't it? And he had an extra $100,000. He was going to put an additional $100,000 down on his loan so he could have a $300,000 loan for 30 years instead of a $400,000 loan for 30 years. I said, nope, you want the $400,000 loan. And he says, well, why would I do that? I said, well, here's why. Here's a $400,000 loan. You make your first payment. Okay. Where's your $100,000? He said, it's still in the bank. I said, could you add it to this payment right now? He just looked at me. He said, well, yeah. So look what I need you to see what happens when we put $100,000 on this thing. So we're going to take a look at cumulative principal and scroll down. Look at this. Scrolling, 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 scrolling. So if you didn't know anything about the P.I.L.L method, look at this. 100,000. Look at that. It knocks off 176 payments. Look how much interest he's saving. And he still has a $300,000 loan, doesn't he? But he's not starting out on payment number 1. He's starting out on payment 177. Nobody told us that. Nobody teaches us that. I want you to understand how mortgages work from the bottom to the top. so that when somebody comes along and says, you know what, you can optimize interest savings using AI, artificial intelligence, telling you how much money to pay, what month to pay it in, what day of the month to pay it on, and how much, and save the maximum amount of interest that's mathematically possible, because the more interest you save, the faster and cheaper you get out of debt. It's about saving interest cost. It is not about interest rate. It has never been about interest rate. It has always been about interest cost, because, ladies and gentlemen, that's how they make their money. We make mistake after mistake after mistake because we're taught to do it. We're taught to think this way. We're taught that if you to pay off your credit cards every month, you're taught to do that. You're taught to hate credit card interest, but nobody ever told you why. Nobody ever told you why. So let me give you an example of that. So if I have a $10,000 credit card, okay, I got 10,000. Oh, then let's make it a whopping 27%. Now, if you're using Brett Whistle, you want to put, 240 payments in. Okay. So the first interest payment on this at 27%, ladies and gentlemen, is $225. So every expert out there would say, if you have 10,000 in the bank, you need to go ahead and pay that $10,000 card off, because that 27% is killing you. They'll tell you that, and it will feel like the 27% is killing you, but they never tell you how much it is in dollars and cents. I just told you it was $225. So, so if you pay that off right now, if you pay it off, how much interest will you save yourself? Exactly $225. Or you could take that money and tell Visa, I'm going to pay you $225 this month. I'm going to take the $10,000 I owe you and put it on this mortgage and knock off over 2 years worth of payments and save myself 66, almost 67 grand in interest. Thank you, Visa. Thank you, MasterCard. Thank you, American Express, for my $66,000 in interest savings. I'll pay you. I'll pay you next month. I'll pay you in 2 or 3 months. Okay. But it's only going to cost me a little over $200 a month to pay you guys a little bit later. But I got to save almost $66,000 in interest. I never have to pay the bank. And I just knocked off over about almost 2.5 years off this mortgage with the same amount of money. Nobody's telling us that. Nobody tells us that at all. They want us to make huge mistakes. They want us to feel good about paying off the credit card and saving $225. When if this was my mortgage, we're talking 66 grand. It's okay to pay your mortgage 66 grand as long as you save $225 on your credit card. Yeah. Thank you, Dave Ramsey. Thank you, Susie Orman. Thank you for that. We need mortgage reform. We need to learn how this actually works. We need to be able to disrupt the system so that we can take that money and put it to work the right way. Okay? We need to put it to work the right way so that we can, let me put this on the screen for you, so that we can save the maximum amount of interest possible. All right? So let me pull this up. There we go. There it is. Okay, boom. All right. So here is our system here. And we're going to, let's see. Let's use this one. Method number 2, checking and savings method. you know, checking and savings method. Here, so John and Rebecca Jones, look at this. John and Rebecca Jones, they have a $25,000 auto loan. They owe $5,500 on the MasterCard. They have a signature loan of $2,400, $200,000 mortgage at 6% interest right there. They owe a total of $232,900. What's great about this is that they're going to save $150,000 in interest they never have to pay the bank. Money they were scheduled to pay the bank. Let me stop right here. John and Rebecca, when they signed the mortgage to get this house, they were extremely happy to get their first house. Extremely happy. They just didn't know they signed up to, well, it just didn't dawn on them how much interest they had to pay to get the doggone thing. And somebody comes along, P.I.L.L method comes along and says, you know what? We're going to use your current budget so that you can save $150,000. Okay. You're supposed to be paid off. You're supposed to be out of debt. Okay. In 2055. But now you're going to be out of debt. Let's see, years to pay off, debt payoff date, 2037. Oh, that is exactly 11.8 years from now. Pretty doggone good. Now, they're a little bit over the average, but they don't care. Okay? They don't care because that's what it is today. By the time we get to everything paid off, they're going to get raises along the way. And it will still be in that 7 to 9 year range because we haven't counted in the raises yet. How about that? I love this thing. So they're not going to save $150,000 in interest. They're going to save way more than that because they're going to get raises along the way. How about that? So let me show you something else. When they're supposed to be out of debt in 2055 with all their neighbors, okay, who are not using the P.I.L.L method, this is what it's looking like for them. Let me go in here and look at reports. I'm going to pull up net worth. Okay, we're going to look at wealth accumulation. Remember, I said they're supposed to be out of debt in 2055. So they're going to have all of their mortgage paid off, okay, 2037. And I'm going to go down to when they were supposed to be paid off. Look at here, 2055. Paying off house, and the interest that they didn't have to spend could make them an extra $574,000. And that's at a 1% return on their money. Compounded interest. So what if they put it in a vehicle that's getting the national average right around 6 to 7%? They're millionaires using money that when they signed the documents, they signed that they were going to give that money over to the banks. So it's not just the extra interest that's the problem. It's the money that money will never make for them because they can't invest it. Now they can. Now they can invest it into their own family and start building generational wealth. That's why we're here, ladies and gentlemen. We need you to know that you can use a system like this. Okay, let me pull this back up and give you an idea of what's going on. Let's go to the action plan and let me show you how easy it is for them to do what they're doing. And we're going to start out by putting how much we're going to keep in savings, John and Rebecca. Okay, John and Rebecca say, let me go to preferences. John and Rebecca said, we want to keep $4,500 in savings to start with. And they said, well, you know what? We could play around with that. What would happen to our 11.8 years if we were to increase our savings from 4530? What if we were to increase that to $20,000? Okay. What will that do? From 11.8, 13 years. Another 20,000 that we could put somewhere else and invest it. You see? There's a lot we could tell with this thing. All right. Let's go back down to what did I have in there? About $4,000. That's okay. Let's just make it 4,500. Okay, there we go. 4,500 bucks. Okay, we're still at 11.8. Okay. So now let's take a look at the action plan. Let's see how that works. Uh-oh, you guys weren't seeing that. Why didn't you tell me? Yeah, I'm sorry. You're looking at me and not the program. So let me go back and show you this because you weren't able to see that. I'm sorry. Let me go ahead and go to the report section. Net worth. Okay. And wealth accumulation, so you guys can see it. And we're going to scroll down to 2055. And that turns into $574,000 if they were to invest that money at a 1% return on investment. That's pretty doggone good. Pretty good. Money we're no longer giving to the bank can turn into over $500,000 at 1% return on the money. What if we could get 6 or 7? That's what I was talking about before. Okay. So the other thing I showed was we're at 11.8 years to pay off. Okay. And we can tell the program how much interest we want to say, how much we want to keep in the bank. We can go from 45 to 20 grand if we want. Okay. And we're still out of debt in 13 years instead of 11.8. Okay. A little over a year. It's not bad. So let's take this back to $4,500. Save that and everything goes back. So now I need you to see how they're doing what they're doing. Here's what they're doing. John gets paid here, $1,462. We're starting in March. So he just tells the program, I got paid. All right. And when he does, that disappears from the screen and adds it to his virtual checking account, which is in the program. And here's his checking account. Right now, they have a joint checking account, and in there is his paycheck, and they now have $2,412 in their checking account. Let's check the history. Okay. So they started out at $950 starting balance. They put in a deposit of $1,462. Now they have a total of $2,412. It's right there. Okay. So let's go back to the action plan. And now they're going to pay the mortgage. And every time they click on one of these, it disappears. Pay the mortgage and that's subtracted. Pay the signature loan and that's subtracted. But now the program has done the math and says, you know what? You can put $232.25 in savings because you don't need that for anything else. And let's see how much we owe on the MasterCard. We owe $5,500 on the MasterCard. So the program says, let's go ahead and drop. See, with these arrows, it says we're going to pay extra on the card now. We're going to put $1,271.14 on the MasterCard. And we're going to save a total of $1,971 in interest we never have to pay. Because most people just pay the minimum on the credit card. But if we can knock $1,200 off and keep plenty in savings, watch this. So, Don, what's happening to our savings? Remember, I said I have $4,500 in savings. Okay. So let's go through this. We pay the signature loan, and we're going to move this to savings, and we're going to pay the MasterCard. So we're going to execute all of these at the same time. Okay. Execute. All right, let's check and see what we have. We paid that money on the credit card, so we owe less on the card. And let's go to accounts. We still have $4,500 in the account. Look at that. Still have $4,500 in savings. Watch this. We can now we're going to put another $335 in. Okay. So we're going to do the rest of this month. Okay. We're going to execute the rest of the month of March. Execute that. Okay. And we're going to go down this far. We're going to take care of all of these at one time. So I don't have to click on them, separately. And we're going to put another $698.33 on the MasterCard here. We're going to execute all of these, pay all of our bills. Okay. And we've saved over $3,000 in interest we've never have to pay already. And how much do we have in savings? We still have $4,500 in savings. Look at that. We're killing that debt and we still have money in savings. Look at that. Okay. Let's just say we didn't spend all of our money for all of the money we have extra. That's for everything else. So we're going to execute that. All right. And we only spent $1,600 of it. Okay. All right. So that means we have $535 left. So we're just going to close that out. We're going to take that and close out that budget. So the program says, oh, you got an extra $535 to put on debt. And we'll close out the rest of the month. Just like that. Okay. So now we're in May. Okay. So today's May 12th. But the program says we're on May 15, we're going to put some more money on that on that credit card and knock it out. So the program is working hard to put that money on the debt, ladies and gentlemen, while we're keeping money in savings and we're paying the rest of our bills. And look at this. They have over $2,000 that they can spend on whatever they want, on everything else, and still get out of debt in plenty of time. But if they didn't want to spend all of that money on everything else, they could get out of debt even faster. But who wants to work all the time, just pay bills, and not be able to go anywhere, not have any fun, stay at home, can't go out to eat, can't go out on vacation, have to cut up your credit cards, have to drive a 30-year-old car, have to eat beans and rice 7 days a week? Who wants to live like that? Nobody I know. Nobody I know. I know people do it, but nobody I know wants to live like that. They want to have a lifestyle so they don't feel as if I'm working all the time just to paying bills. I can live along the way and kill $151,000 in interest and be out of debt in less than 12 years. Folks, that's what we're talking about. So if you want to disrupt, put that back on the screen. Okay. If you want to disrupt, be a debt disruptor, go to ICE 10K right now, ice10k.com, and fill that thing out. Okay. Get a savings and earnings report. And you can know the month, day, and year you could be debt free. Okay. Get that right now. So let me play this for you. All right. And we're getting ready to wrap things up, but I want you to see this. How many want to know how to pay off all of your debt in an average of 7 to 9 years? You can do all of this without refinancing, without change to your budget, without sacrificing lifestyle.
Me and my husband do the P.I.L.L method, and last year we were able to pay down $33,000 on our mortgage without feeling like we were poor. We still did tons of entertaining things and enjoyed our family.
You don't have to eat beans and rice every day. You don't have to cut up your credit cards. You don't have to drive a 30-year-old car. You don't have to sell pizzas at night to pay off your mortgage. All you need to do is pay the bank less interest. That's what we're talking about today. Here is what P.I.L.L method stands for: prepayment of principal, isolation of principal amounts, leverage, and liquidity. You understand it? You have a way of getting out of debt more efficiently. The interest rate you're quoted is not the interest rate you pay. You think you're buying a $500,000 home. The true cost of that home is what? $758,000. Total interest paid as a percentage of principal, 51.777%. That's what's going on with this loan. The ability to read and defeat an amortization schedule is not taught at any level of financial education. I need you to understand the power of a penny. You will not hear what I'm talking about from Dave Ramsey. Do you know why? Because I own the copyright. I literally wrote the book.
But Don has some valuable information that can contribute to the quality of a person's life. And it only costs you a few dollars. It's his book. Why not get that?
I'm going to go through the P.I.L.L method myself with some of my investment properties. So I'm going to link up with Don, and then I'm going to sit down with him, show him my investment portfolio, and see how I can eliminate interest.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what programs have you heard of that can get you out of debt faster? Okay. Have you heard of the debt snowball or the avalanche method, or using a HELOC in first position, or borrowing money from a HELOC, or, any other type of program that's out there? Here's what I need to tell you about any other program. They will get you out of debt faster than doing nothing. But what they can't tell you is how much interest you're saving each time you do something. They don't show you the numbers. They leave it up to you to guess how much money to put on the debt. They leave it up to you to guess how much you borrow from your HELOC. They leave it up to you to figure out when you're going to pay and how much. When you do it exactly right, you will save the maximum amount of interest that's mathematically possible for you. Any other program, if you're looking at the average family with the average amount of debt, with the average amount of interest cost per month that they're paying, any other program, they're going to pay on average, $50,000 to $75,000 more in interest than using the P.I.L.L method to get out of debt faster. They're going to get out of debt faster than doing nothing. But they will not realize that they're paying all of that extra interest they could have avoided. Listen, If you had a GPS unit in your car and you're going from point A to point B, does it make sense to you to pull out a paper map to check your GPS to make sure it's right? Stopping every 10, 15 miles to say, let me pull out a paper map and figure it out myself. We don't do that. There's so much going on behind the scenes. So much math going on behind the scenes. Factorial math. It's just thousands upon thousands of permutations that this thing has to go through. Do you know computers are not smart? They're just fast. To figure out what is the right amount of money to pay at the right time, the right month, and put it on the right loan, do you realize that computers don't just pick numbers at random? They do ones and zeros. There's one unit at a time. So if you have a certain amount of money available, it says, okay, out of that money, we're going to take 1 penny and put it on every day, on every month, on every loan, and figure out your interest savings. And then 2 pennies, then 3, then 4, until it comes up in just a few seconds with the right amount of pennies. So in this situation, one of those situations, we were putting over $1,200 on the debt, but it didn't get to that $1,200 instantly. It got there 1 penny at a time to get the right amount of money on the right day, in the right month, on the right loan. That is a ton of math. If you want the very best results possible, then you want our opportunity cost calculator. You want our AI system to help you to figure that out. That's why we're here, folks. We're not here. We're here to save you money, not take money from you. Save you money. There is no other program on the planet that's as powerful as this one. So that's going to be it for me tonight. We'll be back on Wednesday morning for another show to get into this thing a little bit deeper, understanding more and more and more. So in the meantime, I can give you, let me also, somebody wants to give us a call. Let me change the banner here. Let's see, not that one. There we go. That's our phone number. Area code 256-886-1867. If you want to call and ask some questions and, talk to our assistants, and maybe you want to ask a question before you start filling out your savings report. So we have people who man the phones. But if you call after business hours, they'll take down your information, and the operators will take down your information and someone will give you a call the next day if you're calling after business hours. Okay. Anyway, folks, I had a good time with you tonight. And if you like what you saw, put a comment in the chat. Did you like the information you received? Would you like more of this kind of information? This is the only place on the internet that teaches you how to understand mortgage mechanics so that we can lead you into interest cancellation and interest optimization, saving the most in the least amount of time. All right, folks, I'm getting ready to get out of here. I will be back on Wednesday, but in the meantime, go ahead and fill that. Get your savings report done. There's no need to procrastinate. Some of you watch me every single week, and for some reason, you're not filling out the report. Okay, I'll tell you what. Anybody who calls, because maybe they want to ask a question, but if you call and ask for me directly, okay? Now, today is Monday, May 12th. Okay. So if you see this any other day on the replay, don't do this. Excuse me. Monday, May 12th. If you call today and leave a message for Don, I will call you back tomorrow. Okay. That's for Monday, May 12th, 2025. And so that's the only day I'm doing that. Some of you need to ask a question before you fill it out. I get it. Okay. So call, ask for me. I personally will return your call. All right, folks, we're getting out of here. I want to see you on Wednesday. Fill out that information, get your savings and earnings report, know the month, day, and year you can be debt free on all of your debt. All right. Have a good evening. Bye-bye now.